All right, hello, welcome to the Photography Roundtable. I'm your host, Nana Ferdinand. I'm the Visual Arts Manager here at the Suffolk Center for Cultural Arts. And this is an extension of the Tangled Roots Capturing Black Culture exhibition. And it has two photographers in this exhibition. It's gonna be Allyn Brown right here on my right. And we also have guest photographers who are local in our area, Michael DiBari and Diana Chappell, okay? Earl Manning could not be here, but we are currently in the gallery that features his photography series, and that is What's on Your Head, and I'll just do a quick quote from him. So he says, "The beauty and complexity of black hair can be seen through the designs we choose, the products we use, and the various textures that make our hair diverse." And so he really wanted to capture that here in these photographs, and so if y'all want to look at them later during our break, we definitely can do that. But I'm really here to just have a conversation about photography. It's a medium that I feel like is not highlighted a lot in the art world, and I absolutely love it, and I know my photographers on the right love it too, which is why they practice it. Michael DiBari here on the far right, he is a photographer teacher at ODU, and he's been practicing photography for a long time. Diana Chappell here in the wonderful orange and yellow. She is a photographer and retired teacher. And she was recently featured in our Talented Teachers and Students exhibition in July. Had wonderful photographs there for that exhibition. And again here, Allyn Brown, who runs O'Neill's photography studio here in Suffolk. And he is in the other gallery where his artwork is featured. So we're gonna go ahead and get started here. So I'm going to start with, well, Michael has the microphone there. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with you, Michael. So the first question I'd like you all to answer, if that's okay, is when did you know that you wanted to be a photographer and what got you into the passion of photography? Yes, Michael, please.
Should I hold this up or should I just talk normal?
Oh, in the microphone, please.
Talk in the microphone?
Yes.
Okay. When did I first time?
Oh, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, I
Okay.
remember it. I decided I wanted to be a photographer. Well, when I was in high school, I was kind of an average student. And my father, I took a photo class and I did really well in it. And my father made a deal with me and said that if I made straight A's, he would buy a darkroom, an enlarger, and the lights and the trays, and that kind of motivated me to do well in school, and that's what I did. And he bought me a darkroom, and I put it in the closet, and that was the beginning of my whole photography career. And then I went to school, college, and studied it as well, and I was a newspaper photographer for about 15 years. And then I went to grad school and studied it some more, and I continue to do it and teach it now.
Wonderful, wonderful. How about you, Diana?
Thank you. Well, during the 80s, as a journalism student at Norfolk State, I had a real disdain for photography. Some of us will remember that was back during the days of the dark room. And I had no interest in being in the darkroom. And as a budding reporter, as someone who was seeking a journalism degree, I remember protesting to one of the instructors, why is it that we would have to, do the darkroom? Why is it that we'd have to do images when we go out for story assignments? We'd have a photographer with us. Well, you can see how how things have changed. But I was always the person in the family who was documenting the family history. I've always been interested in history and culture. And I guess it was 2012 when I decided, when I was thrust into becoming a photographer, and that was when I went to Ghana. I had been to East Africa, but there was something about going to the west coast of Africa and experiencing all that I experienced there in the dungeons and whatnot that really, really pressed my heart and made me declare that when I came back, I was going to tell the story, tell about the humanity of the people who had come through those dungeons. So, and I wanted to do that with photography. So.
Okay, so the reason that I got into photography is kind of a sad story. I was taking typing in school, and I was going to flunk, and the teacher said, "You need to do something else." So I transferred to photography. And some of you are probably too young to have experienced this, but I was in the darkroom, and when you see the image from a blank piece of paper in the darkroom pop up and develop in the developer, there's no way to describe how cool that is. So that's what got me hooked on photography. So that's what started my journey.
Very nice. And I mean, I'm a millennial, so I don't think I'm that old, but I remember in high school, I did use a dark room, so I don't know. I don't think it's that archaic, but I think y'all are not. Don't age yourself too much, you know? So the second question I have here is, and we'll start with you, Alan, this time since you have the microphone. What would you consider your aesthetic as a photographer? And, you know, from talking to your sitter or the subject matter, or, you know, what is the subject matter to taking the photograph to printing the image? So what tends to be your subject matter? And then also, like, what's your process? Still using the dark rooms, or is it more digital now?
So I'm mainly a portrait photographer, so that's 95% of what I do. So we don't have a dark room anymore, unfortunately. So, I mean, I guess you can still get the same thrill when you see a print come through the printer, you know. So, yeah, dark room is light room, yeah. So, you know, I guess the thing that's just so fun and fascinating in portraiture is to be able to talk to someone, sit down, find out what some of their strengths are, some of their weaknesses, their insecurities, and create an image that really can portray their spirit, their personality, to the best of my ability. And that's what keeps photography exciting for me.
Oh, and really quick, if you want to talk about your photographs over here, Diana, okay. Just for the audience, these are Diana's photographs over here on our left, and on our right are Michael's photography. If you want to talk about that when the mic gets to you.
Yeah, so Alan, like Alan, I like faces. I love faces. I love capturing those expressions, candid expressions of people. I dislike wedding photography. Too nerve-wracking. I'll leave that to to O'Neills, to the O'Neills of the world. But initially, since my real introduction, the decision to go into photography came in 2012. And as a result of that trip, the first thing that I did was to have an exhibition at Norfolk State. I had a one-woman show in the gallery that was opening at Norfolk State. I had 40 pieces, and they were primarily black and whites. That was exciting. Printing was exciting. So I guess I would say that my aesthetics, my style, is kind of journalistic or documentary. That's where, or at least that's where I was. I decided that what I wanted to do was to document the history, the historical experiences of African American people in this area. So coming back from Ghana, from West Africa, I then went to Hampton, where the contraband soldiers were. and where the first Emancipation Proclamation was read under that tree, the Freedom Tree over at Hampton University. And then I went out to Southampton County and shot around the old plantations out there. So it was just a matter of documenting the history. But over time, people started to ask me, do you shoot parties? Do you shoot, babies? And so, yeah, so we have dibbled and dabbled with those things too. And now I've reached the point that I'm working more with color and to try to get a more artistic look with photography. So I have the image that Nana mentioned that I had up previously here was a Native American from the Nazman tribe. And, whenever someone sees it, they ask me if it is a painting. It's not, but with the feathers and his face painted and everything, it really pops as if it is a painting. These images here are from a hair show. It was something very similar to Tangled Roots, but it was sponsored by the Loch Nation, and so that's what those images are about. And that represents my style today.
So my style is basically journalistic as well. I consider myself a documentary photographer and a storyteller. I look for stories of, currently whatever is of interest. These pictures are pretty recent. This is a portrait of Valerie, who is a demolition derby driver who will probably be in the Peanut Fest Demolition Derby in October again. When I first started as a photographer, I would work for newspapers, and they would give us an assignment, and we would go out and photograph a variety of things, from Little League baseball to football games to court to restaurant reviews to portraits of people to portraits of the new city council. And then as I got older, and currently I still like to photograph, but I do more in-depth stories where I'll just spend a little bit of time doing some research and finding out what I want to do and finding out what the story is, and then I immerse myself into that. And the Demolition Derby project that I'm working on now, I've been working on it for about 5 years. I've been to the Peanut Fest Demolition Derby here. I've been to the Isle of Wight Demolition Derby and a few others in North Carolina and Virginia. I photograph the drivers. I go to their homes and photograph them working on their cars. So I kind of just immerse myself in the story and what does it take to be a demolition derby driver, to go out and smash up your car and, want to do it again. That's really interesting to me. So my style basically is documentary, is the way I consider it now. The other part of the question was, how do you photograph strangers?
Basically, your process. So you sort of explained that. That's fine. I think your process from, how do you even print your images? What's your technique?
Okay. So my process currently is immersing myself into doing a long-term project, and then I like to make books. And so I brought a few examples in the back of books that I've made, and they're really small. They're more like zines, photo zines. But I like the idea of leading a person through pictures, a sequence of pictures. I like printing. I try to have shows whenever I can, be a part of that. I think that's the process.
All right, great. The third one might be a challenging question, and I'll start with you again, Michael, since you have the mic. And third question I have is, how do you push the boundaries of photography? How do you take your creative license when you take a photograph?
So this was, I think, a tough question. How do I push the boundaries? I don't think I necessarily do push the boundary, actually.
Okay.
Just because my style is a documentary style. And the way I do push boundaries is to photograph different people and stories that wouldn't normally get attention. So I photograph a lot of kind of mundane subjects, my neighbors, cutting the grass. I photographed my neighbor down the street teaching his daughter how to roller skate. So they're very normal, everyday things that you would just see and not think twice about. So my idea is to bring attention to different situations that wouldn't normally get attention.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, how do I push boundaries? Again, I love, as I said, I don't like wedding photography, but I do love funerals, and I do love events, because I love to capture, I love for people to see themselves in an image that touches their heart. So I remember during COVID, the first funeral that I was, the first person that I knew that died, I was very reluctant to go to the funeral. I didn't go to the funeral home. I went to the cemetery, and I stood at a distance, and I shot. And when the service was over, later, I printed the pictures out and gave it to that person. And you all will recall that there were many, many funerals during that time. And it just, you know, I either knew someone who was prominent in the community or someone who was close to me. So I shot a lot of funerals. So in July the 4th, 2021, the Ledger Star did a story about what I was doing, and it said, "Photographer documents grief during time of COVID." And like Mike, I also print books. I like to do that. And I push the boundaries with, I remember saying to someone at one point, if I was a man, I'd be a photographer. And the person that I said it to, who was male, said, I mean, I don't get it. I mean, what's that got to do with anything? And I said, because people expect a man to be, you know, it's acceptable that a man would be in your face taking pictures. I think it's less acceptable for a woman. And he said, I don't think that's the case. And so then I started trying to push the boundary. I started at church. I'd take people on Sunday. And I'd bring them 4x6s back and give it to them. And then I went on to 5x7s, and I went on to 8x10s, and I went on to 12x18s, and, you know, yeah. And so now I know how to talk to people without using words. I can tell them what I want them to do, and I'm real comfortable with that. I'm old enough that, you know, that people accept that, you know. I can say, you, come. And we good, and we good.
Oh my goodness.
And in funerals, you know, same thing. You know, you know how to get the grief moment, but stay far enough away from people so that they can grieve and you can capture the moment. So that's my style of pushing the boundaries.
Okay, well, I guess the way that we push the boundaries is definitely the opposite of photojournalistic. So when we're taking a portrait of someone, we do creative liberties to make them look better than they look, because everyone wants to look great in a photograph. So there's a fine line between, you know, making someone look better and making them not look like themselves. So you have to stay within the reality of what they look like, but you have to make them look like how they think they look. So that can be an art. The other thing that we do is we use a lot of mediums, paint, oil paint, and the painter process to create portraits. So we do oil over photographs, and that's kind of an art that I grew up with when I started with O'Neill's, because they used to do a lot of oils. Well, before color film, they did everything. If you wanted a color picture, you had to have it oiled by an artist. So we still try to keep that art and offer that to customers. We do a lot of judges for courtrooms that are photographic oils along with families, and someone that just wants not just photography but a piece of art.
Thank you. That's so interesting to, and it's so important to capture the stories of people, like you and Mike, like y'all all capture the stories of people, I believe, and then leading a person through photographs with the books, and then also just the process of adding another element of art or another medium of art to photography. I think that's really awesome. And I guess we sort of answered the next question for me. I guess we could still talk about this, and you can expand on this if you want. How do the communities and cultures you're involved in affect the photography work you do? And I feel like you all already answered this question. If you want to talk about it more, you definitely can, or we can just move on to our fun question, which is, okay, go ahead.
I love sharing cultures. Just like I said, I go to the powwows that the Native American community does, both in Nasman, in Suffolk, and also in Chesapeake. I go to the Filipina Festival. I'm a member of Norfolk Sister Cities, so each one of the countries that's represented in Norfolk Sister Cities has some form of a festival or gathering that represents that culture. Yeah. So I like to share my culture, and I like to share the cultures of other communities. And how has it affected my photography? It has made me, it's again where you push the boundaries, where that, where you it's a place where you can get to know different communities, you can share different cultures, share your culture, and learn their culture.
So one of the, I think we all live in different communities, community where we live and where we work, and friends, and things that we're interested in, and I don't think I go out of my way to find mundane things, but it kind of sounds mundane next to you. Another project that I'm also working on is this coffee shop that I go to, not every day, but a lot of the times. My wife is there saying, "Don't go there every day." But you go to this local. It's called Cobros, and it's a local coffee shop run by two guys. And I go there once or twice a week at least, and I bring my camera, and there's always something going on. They're young men. They have crazy lives, and I started just photographing them as part of a community of people that I know just getting a coffee. So one of the owners got a tattoo on his head, and I went with him and photographed him getting a tattoo on his head, which was crazy. I don't think I'd ever seen that before. Just stuff like that. And I'm putting together now a little project it's called Local Coffee. And it's just people that come in and get coffee, and how that becomes a little community within itself. And it'll hopefully maybe be a little show that we can put up there, and I'll make a little book to go with it. So the way I do it is there's so many different communities where I teach. The students have their own communities, and I have a community with them. The community where you go to church. There's so many different communities and so many different potential ideas that come from those communities. And they're all filled with people and people in their lives. It's really interesting and fascinating.
You know how to answer this? You have any comments for this, Alan?
I don't really have any comments for that,
Okay.
for that question.
Okay, we can move on to our fun question. Like, how do you get started to become a photographer? What's the best camera to buy? Also cost effective, you know. Inflation is real.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, you can either spend a lot of money on photography equipment or you can spend a little. And I don't recommend spending a little, but you don't have to spend a lot. I guess you can kind of liken it to, I don't know, like a chef, what frying pan is the best one? It doesn't really matter as long as you know how to use it. So it's kind of, you definitely want a camera that you can have interchangeable lenses. So you don't want to get a little click and shoot Instamatic thing. It definitely has to have a manual setting so that you can play with exposure and shutter speed and, you know, try to get the effects that you want. But brand, Nikon, so, you know, Nikon, Sony, whatever, they're all pretty much the same. I mean, there are differences, but it's more in how you use the camera than like go out and buy an real expensive camera. Still, if you don't know lighting or, you know, some of the basics, it's not going to help you out. So, so yeah, and the main thing is, you know, just experiment and don't be afraid to make mistakes and, you know, crop out your mistakes. So.
I was thinking, I was in New York shooting at one point. It was the International Friendship Festival, which is beautiful because all these different countries represented, and the colors are just beautiful, beautiful. And I discovered that I didn't have a battery in my camera. And I was running around, it was on a Sunday, and I was running around asking photographers, where can I get a Canon battery? Where can I get a Canon? They said, it's Sunday. I mean, you can get it. And then one of the photographers said, do you have a phone? And I said, yes, I have a phone. And he said, well, use your phone. And, you know, now often people say, what's the best camera to use? It's the camera that you have with you. You know, use what you have. And then if you decide to get into the business, you know, many photographers will say that a good place to start is with a 50, because with a 50 you can go distance and you can get a full shot, or you can go up close and you can get portrait shots. But I agree with Alan. You know, it's really about the lens. You know, people say, do you shoot with Canon or do you shoot with Nikon? Don't touch Nikon. Shoot with Canon, because Canon kind of consistently, you know, if you can work one, I have a 5D, a 7D, a 60. I forgot 2 60s. No. I got 2 5Ds, 5D2 and a 5D Mark III, and 60s. And I also have a T5i, which is the lightest camera that I have. So if I'm going and I want to, you know, go to a party down at the park, I'll take my 5D, you know, because it's light enough that I can carry it and I can shoot, and it's you know, it doesn't have much weight. The 5D with my 20 to 70 lens, I take if I'm serious. This is for making money, you know, and it is heavy. So And how do you get, just start. I agree with Alan, just start.
Okay, lens and 5D and, okay, not Nixon, but Canon. So lens and Canon. All right, Michael.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of reiterate the same. You can start photographing. Anyone can be a photographer. Use whatever you have, whether it's a phone or a little. Just to start, I think, is a good. Anything you have, you can borrow a camera from a friend, and just start photographing. Over time, you'll want to do more, and then over time, you want to do even more. But once you start, you kind of get the excitement of being a photographer, right? And then once you start, you keep going, and you say, and then pick something that you like to photograph. And these are amazing pictures of hair, which is, most people have hair. It's just the most normal, regular, everyday thing, but it's done in a creative way. I'm sure there's lots of pictures that he didn't show so it's a progression of exploring hair. And anyone could do that. You can photograph hair, you can photograph your backyard, you can photograph your neighborhood. And then when you get to a certain point, you say, I really want more. What can I do more? And then you experiment with different lenses. This is a 50 millimeter lens, a 35 millimeter lens. And then you go to YouTube to figure out what you don't know how to do. The most cost-effective camera, the cameras range from your phone, which is whatever your phone costs, to thousands of dollars. But you don't necessarily, as Alan said, doesn't make you a better photographer. So, photograph with what you have, which is a great thing, and then see where that goes from there.
Awesome. And then make sure you upload it on YouTube to get yourself started. All right. So we're actually going to take a break here, and we'll resume at 3:45, and y'all can have questions and answers from the audience. All right. Thank you. welcome back, everybody. I think everybody's got a few little snacks here. So we'll go ahead and go to a Q&A. And anybody up for any questions? Or I can, yes, ma'am. All right, we're going to hand you a microphone. Give us a moment, okay? Oh, maybe might have to indicate glasses or no glasses.
Good afternoon, and thank you all. This is really an interesting session. I am an art investor. My name is
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Shiana T. Carter, and I'm new to the Suffolk area. I've relocated from Alexandria, Fort Washington, Fredericksburg about 8 months ago, and I want to thank Miss Nana for the invite. I'm here. So with that being said, and I am an art investor. I invest in art. I have clays, seriographs, APs, art on campus. So now I'm looking at a different side from the photographer side. So with that being said, the gentleman in the black t-shirt, you stated that you take photographs of individuals to make them feel good. Would you consider that an optimal illusion? Or what is your perception of that? I wasn't too clear on that. You take photographs to make people feel good, but when they look at themselves in the mirror and that photograph is not mirrored with how they really look, isn't that considered an optimal illusion? Could you elaborate?
Sure. Well, first off, I'm commissioned to do their portraits, so they're paying me to make the best presentation of them.
But there's a difference when it comes to money.
And
you didn't say that, so. Okay.
And most people have kind of an idea of how they look, but it's not always exactly how they look, and we all want to look better than we do. So that's what I get paid to do.
Well, there's a difference. When money is involved, you should. Thank you.
That's very true. All right, any other questions? Don't be shy. And just raise your hand and we'll pass you the microphone. Oh, yes, y'all can ask questions. Any other questions? Oh, and can you please state your name and where you're from?
My name's Kiani Garces. I live in Portsmouth and I go to ODU. I also have a question for the man in the black t-shirt.
Oh, Alan.
No glasses. Alan. Hello, Alan. How would you say you go about making people look good in their photos? Like, how do you make them look slightly different than what they actually do?
Okay, that's a great question. That for a portrait photographer, that's probably the best question of the night. So I'd say a big percentage of it is lighting and posing. There's flattering angles and poses, and there's unflattering angles and poses. So 95, maybe 100% of women want to look a little thinner than they are. So if you're broad, straight on the camera, you're going to look wider. If you turn a little bit, you're going to look thinner. The same with lighting. If lighting is flat or broad lighting, they call it, which is pretty much across the whole front of you, you're going to look wider. If it's to the side, more of a Rembrandt lighting or butterfly lighting, even over the top, it's going to make you look thinner. Excuse me. So that's a couple things. Then there's Photoshop. So that's photographer's best friend these days.
Adobe Create, yeah.
Yeah. So, little things that you do that aren't noticeable, because you want it to still be a great representation of the person, just a great representation of them. So, Thank you for
Thank
that
you.
question.
Oh, name and where you're from, please, if you don't mind.
I'm sorry.
Oh, your name and where you're from? Or you can just state your name.
My name is Joyce Riddick,
Thank
and
you.
I'm from Suffolk.
Yay.
When did you realize you wanted to get paid for taking photos? So when did you decide you want to go from taking pictures of families and friends and then transitioning that into a business?
And is this question posed to everyone?
Anybody?
Okay.
I don't think Alan ever had that experience. You went straight into the business. Yeah, well, as I said, giving away images initially, the 4x6s, that's marketing. That's marketing. And so once people started to ask for you to take pictures of them, then you're transitioning. You're making that transition, So like, oh, sure, I can do it, and I can do it. What size would you like, So it's like half the folk, at least in our church, if you go to their houses, they have my photographs of them on their wall, So, and we went, like I said, up to 16 by 20s, And now people have discovered, oh, you do canvases? Yeah, we do canvases. And I wanted to say something about these images because you asked about, Alan is a portrait photographer, which means he wants the best likeness of you, the clearest, and even over here, with Mike, these are clean images. These images that I have here, they are artistic. They're not meant to be portraits of the person, They are, I have exaggerated, that so that it has more of an artistic kind of flavor.
I was just going to say, I don't think I've ever gotten paid by my family.
Family discount.
Some friends will ask, but I haven't gotten paid by too many friends as well. I guess when you start feeling like you're confident enough that you can ask for money, and people ask you to say, hey, can you come and photograph this or that, or do you mind doing that? Right. When people start asking you is a good time to say, sure, I could, and it'll cost you this much. It's kind of funny because everybody has a phone and everybody has a camera and everybody is more than willing to take a picture. But when you ask someone to come, hey, can you come to my event and photograph my event, then it's completely different. So.
Recently, I did a summer arts program with some kids. I was one of 3 adults who were working with this program. We had a young man who was doing spoken word. I was doing photography, and then another person who was doing a class on riffs, music. Okay, so they went to.
Oh, a DJ.
He was, but he was more than a DJ because he could take their spoken words and enhance it. It made photography look boring, But I discovered, we were trying to figure out how do we get kids to do we buy cameras for all these kids? It's like 15 kids. Do we have to buy cameras? Do we get throwaways? No, everybody's got a phone. Everybody's got a phone, so if you can, and I started to talk to them about, you can make money from this. You have these images here, and I took them to the computer to show them how to download to Walmart. You can download your pictures to Walmart, and you can print them out, and you can charge people for them, But most of the time, what people are doing is just taking pictures. They've got thousands of pictures in the phone, and they've never, they haven't seen them since they took them. So.
All right, any other questions? Oh, name and where you're from, please.
Hi, I'm Noah. I'm from Chesapeake. My question
Hello?
is what does the Hampton Roads area, why is that like a more unique place to take photos of, or like what sets it apart from being anywhere else to take photos?
Nice question. Basically, what makes Hampton Roads a place to take photographs? Why is it so ideal instead of anywhere else? Is that correct, Noah? Okay.
Excellent place to be a photographer, because you've got so many different cultures here. You have the beach, you know, you have just out to Charlottesville and beyond. You've got the mountains, you know. I shoot the Buffalo Soldiers, the Buffalo Riders, excuse me, you know, guys on horses, you know, the Chesapeake Bear Riders, you know. I mean, I've gone with them out to oh my God, it starts with an H, somewhere out in the country, you know, where they go out and, you know, they just ride, you know, and I follow them, you know, get in the car and go with them, you know, and just shoot them, you know. There's just so much around here to take pictures of. I mean, you go down, just walk down the beach and look at everything that's happening on the Broadwalk or on Atlantic Avenue, you know. And then in Norfolk, all around Norfolk. Oh my God. You know, when I was in Detroit, I saw a book where someone had just photographed the murals. You know, wonderful project. You know, wonderful project. It's art all around here, you know, and you can be an artist. Yeah.
Anybody else want to answer?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say that I think that you can go anywhere special and find great pictures. You can go to Paris and photograph the Eiffel Tower and all these great spots. I think wherever you live, whether it's Portsmouth or Norfolk or Chesapeake, if you don't take the time and see what's unique about your home and what's around you, that you're going to be stuck taking the same picture that millions of people took of that Eiffel Tower in Paris. I find that just taking the time and walking somewhere, so a neighborhood that you've never been through, or a street that you've never gone down, and you just slowly walk, you see so much more. The pagoda in Norfolk, sure. Anywhere. It's a great way to see and explore. Norfolk in this area has such a diversity of cultures and people and industry, but the military, and I mean, there's so much here. You just have to kind of, like, what's here? How do I find out? Somebody asked me not too long ago, how do I find all these things to photograph? And you meet people and they say, hey, oh, we do that, you know, in the spring. Oh, we just missed it. And then you remember or write it down, oh, this event happens in the spring. The Native American powwow that just happened. Somebody told me about that, and I went to that one year. I mean, there's just so much. And it's hard because there's so many websites that say, oh, you know, we have all the events. But really, you have to do it for yourself. Like, what are you interested in? What do you want to photograph? So, good question.
And I set up at the farmers market in Portsmouth from time to time. And I discovered, since it was new to me, you know, I have learned that what you want to do is there are people who are coming through the city, visiting, you know, and they want to take a little piece of, you know, what do you call it? Souvenir. Yeah, they want to take a souvenir back with them, you know. And so I just started shooting. Now, I have this in, you know, on 4x6s. I've got the courthouse, the library, you know, all of the historic stuff downtown Portsmouth. I've got in 4x6s and in larger sizes. So when I'm in Portsmouth, I'm focused on what's there. You know, I'm selling what's there.
How about you, Alan? You want to answer the question, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is a great place. There's a lot of military, so there's a lot of families that come, new people, and it's, you know, it's very diverse. So there's a lot of different cultures, and it just makes it fun, you know. But you can do photography anywhere. I mean, anywhere you can do photography.
All right, I saw a question right here in the front row. Name, please. Where are you from?
So my name is Sean Banks. I'm from Suffolk. So military, all that good stuff. Prior military. Let me clear that up. But I am not too. My aptitude for photography is not too high. I don't know too much about the industry itself. It's more for technology. And I noticed you guys had mentioned Photoshop. My question is, how do you feel about technology advancements, specifically AI? And I know how is some of the movie industry have, they've already started tackling certain concerns about, using faces and duplications. How do you guys feel is it something you can leverage in your industry for photography, or is it something you guys kind of feel may, make you irrelevant eventually?
Good question.
It's interesting. I mean, we talk about that in class. I'm doing a workshop on Tuesday about how to deal with AI in the classroom. Can I leverage it? My particular type of work is very authentic and real, and so AI doesn't play a part in what I do personally. But I want to know how to do it. I want to be able to see it and know that this photograph was created not by a human person, but by a computer. To me, that's really important. I think it's important for us as a society to know the difference, because that just makes us smarter people to make smarter decisions about things. It's not going to go away. It's going to get more and more and more. So you either kind of accept it, that it's coming, or you say, no, I don't want to know anything about it, and then you won't know what's real. So my attitude is I'm sure there's going to be photographers that are going to take advantage of it and leverage it and do amazing things with it, and that's great. That's just another... I mean, when photography started, the artists used to say, well, that's not art. Back in the 1800s, well, that's not art. You don't have to do anything. You just take a picture. And I think that now is the same thing. We're going into another time where AI is just going to create another genre of art. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, I just wanted to hear you guys' opinions, that's all.
Yeah. I think it's very important, and it's very important to know about it because it's happening so fast.
I am totally scared of it. I am totally scared of it. It is so crazy. I went to a town hall meeting a couple of weeks ago that Congressman Bobby Scott sponsored, and I asked him if they were putting any, if they were trying to curtail it. What was being done to curtail it, because I mean, you don't know what is real, and what is not. And we have been being programmed for this. If you go to your phone now and the phone makes the decision for you, it tells you that this is the word. That's the beginnings of AI, and we have already started to buy into it in a number of places, Oh my God, it's very, very, to me, it's very scary. And it's scary to think that these kids have access to it, all day long, they have access to, it's very scary. But I don't know how we get out of this, America can't get out of it. We are going further and further down a rabbit hole, it's very sad.
Well, I guess my opinion is it's here and it's going to just continue to grow, and so you either adapt and use it as best you can, or you'll be left behind. So.
Good question, I think.
What do you think about it?
Yes.
Well, like I said, I dabble in technology, and I kind of I've had conversations with Mr. Scott as well about it in my business, and I want to teach people about it. I want them to learn more about it because it's just an input process. It spits out what you put into it. And there has to be protocols put in place and certain levels to, corner it the way it needs to go. But it's just like any development in anything else, just like the development of bullets and guns. There have to be certain things in place to kind of counter it. So, but it's coming. But I just rather everyone to know, be educated about it versus kind of ignoring it, because that's when you have no control. So that's my opinion on that one.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Any other questions? I heard that one of our photographers has a question for the audience. Okay, you want to grab the mic?
When you said you were doing this project that was like a 5-year project, so are you compiling images as you go? What's the goal after 5 years?
That's a great question. What's the goal? I guess the goal would be to have these are just little books that I make, but I'd like to do a real published book and tell the story. And I was actually doing a little research on the history of the demolition derby here in Suffolk. So the goal would be to put something together that would be substantial, exactly. The part 2 of that question is, when do you know to stop? And I don't know when to stop. Yeah. I think I'm close. I think I have enough material to do a really nice book. Although I would like to photograph Valerie working on her car before the event. I think there's some pictures, images that I'm looking for that I haven't found yet. But yeah, that's. And then at some point you work on a project long enough, and it's just you have to say, I think we're done. There's if you think of all the images that you could possibly make, there's nothing new that can come out or substantial enough to keep going.
Can you answer your own question, Diana? In terms of photography series, when do you know to stop a photography series?
Usually I have.
Oh, the mic, please.
Usually when I'm doing books, I have it's from an event, Yeah, after COVID, after I did the book on it's called Sacred Moments, the book about the funerals, I now know that I could go back and I could put more images in that, and I could, because it has limited text. But I could go back now and tell the story of why this was relevant, because I end up, explaining that to people, that there was a time that this funeral only could have 10 people. And then you can see these funerals, they went to 25 people, You can see funerals outside, like that. So, it needs some text to go along with that. And, so that's one thing that I think about going back to do that. And I have lots of images of funerals. But do you have to communicate with people when you're shooting them? Do you ask for permission from the people that you're shooting?
Oh, that's
yes.
important. I know a lot of photographers, or at least, I know a lot of photographers in the past, or I'm thinking of Ansel Adams and Dorothea Lange, they had to ask, of course, permission. How do y'all ask permission for your subject matter and people you photograph, and maybe building the stories from that as well?
So the demolition derby, the demolition derby that I photographed is an event, and all the drivers in the derby, you can't really ask. But to do a portrait, I think before the derby, we just went, and 2 of my students that are here went with me, and they assisted me, and we asked to, hey, do you mind if we get your portrait before the derby? And I think everybody said sure. I mean, it was not nobody said no. usually people, it's not that they want to get their photograph, although some people want to get their photograph, but they're hey, I'm doing this, and you're showing an interest in what I'm doing. Most people like that.
That's true. I even a lot of artists like Gordon Parks and even just artists who paint. I'm trying to remember the one who painted Michelle Obama's portrait, but she, like nationally, internationally, like it's always, in terms of an artist perspective, like asking permission, can I paint your portrait or can I photo? Well, in terms of like asking permission, like can I? Oh, no. No, she was asked. I'm blanking on her name right now, but in terms of, well, my whole point is like asking permission to take a photograph or to, can you, sort of be, not my muse, I don't know if that's the right word, right? But.
Well, I think part of it is copyright stuff, so.
Right.
So it's best to get permission if you're going to be selling any of your stuff, so that you have that copyright permission.
Oh, that's true.
The Buffalo Riders participate each year in the Portsmouth's Memorial Day Parade. And at one point, they were celebrating their 25th year. And so I went to them and asked them if I could shoot the 25th, their anniversary ride. And the guy said, everybody's got a phone. It's like, we're going to have lots of pictures. Everybody's got a phone. And I said, okay, well, do you mind if I just come and shoot? And so the parade went all around, from Norcom High School down through the mid-city area and on back around through the community of Prentice Park and then back downtown. I would get in my car, I would drive ahead, and I would shoot them, and then I would get in my car again, I would go to the next stop, I'd get them there, and I'd shoot, and then I'd go to the next and so I got the whole route.
Right.
So, and afterwards, I just put a book together. And of course, they wanted to buy the book, but they didn't want to contract me to take the pictures, so, but and I didn't have to have everybody sign off on it.
Right.
And usually people like street photography, you don't get people to sign off.
Mm-hmm.
You say, like the Native American that I shot that was up here on this wall.
Mm-hmm.
I just looked at him as I was leaving the powwow, and he was so beautiful, and I said, may I shoot you? And he said, yes. And it's the nicest picture that I had out of all of them that I did. And he was just, after the powwow, just resting, but, it's just a shot.
We talk about that, the legality of when you can photograph and when you can't. And, it's not, if you're in a public space, anybody can photograph anybody. But if you're going to use it to sell it, you need permission. And
Right.
So my training as a newspaper photographer, I can go up to anyone and, say, hey, you're doing such a great job. Do you mind if I get your picture? And then I'll even go and get their names and get their, where they're from. Once you start a rapport with someone, it just kind of flows naturally.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience? Oh, one more question. Can we pass it to the third row, please? Thank you.
I know that the Cultural Arts Center has photography classes. Is it more you're doing in that? You have maybe twice a year?
We do have photography classes. Our photography teacher, he wanted to make it but could not. But yes, we do offer classes here. We have digital photography here. But sorry, what was your question?
Are you doing more on that? Because you just have the same teacher, same class.
I would definitely like to. We can definitely work on that for sure. I know, and we'll have to. I'll have to talk with my colleagues about that. And yeah, I would love to have more people involved if we can advertise it and get it out to the the Hampton Roads area, just people interested in photography. And we also have amazing photographers here. So, yeah, there's definitely a question to be had. If you'd like to take a class, definitely let me know after the session, and or if you even want to talk to these wonderful photographers about, like, how can I learn from you? You know, that can definitely happen. Any other questions? Oh, yes. Your name and where you're from, please.
Dylan, I'm from Chesapeake. I guess my question is, was there something that led you to photography, like another form of art or anything? Like, I'm a graphic designer, and I started wanting to get into photography to, like, use photos and stuff in my graphic design work, and I guess I was just curious if maybe you stumbled into photography, or like how you got into it, if there was something that led you there.
All right. And that might be our last question for tonight.
I couldn't paint or draw, and I always wanted to be a creative person. I also couldn't sing because I wanted to be in a band. And photography opened me up to all of that. So you don't have to know how to paint or draw. You just learn how to take pictures. I didn't sing, so I couldn't be in a band, but I could photograph the band. That's
Wanting to do something artistic, yeah. All right, Alan, I'll give the mic to you for a second.
Yeah, I guess the same kind of thing. I cannot draw a stick man, so I think being a graphic designer is, you have to be very talented to do that, and I think photography is a great addition to that skill. So, yeah.
Nothing at all? Like no singing, no dancing?
Oh.
Before photography? Just straight into it. He knows what he wants. All right, Diana, do you have an answer for that question? How did you do anything before photography? Any other art before photography? Oh, microphone, please.
My art form has been organizing. That's it. I've been an organizer since high school.
Okay.
You know, and I got a whole lot of years since then. So I was a Panther in my teens, and I have always, in one way or the other, been involved in the social justice movement, and so therefore I have always wanted to document what we were doing. You know, I have always documented that. So I did anti-apartheid work, you know, free Mandela work, free Van Burton work. You know, I have been an organizer. So that's what brought me to Ghana, and that's what took me to Kenya. Now I've been to Ghana 3 times, you know. But like I said, I've always had this fascination with history and culture, and I want to share that. So photography is, and I'm a storyteller, you know, journalists are storytellers, and so, you know, it's a natural kind of progression.
All right. So that concludes our photography roundtable. Thanks so much for joining. Oh, we got one more question. Oh, okay. Okay, 3-part question. All right, this will be our last question for the evening. But yeah, how long?
3 questions. What was the first one? Threefold question. What was the first one? Oh, yes. Well, yes. So with the throwaway cameras and then into Kodak and, you know, whatever we had in the darkroom at Norfolk State for forever. But seriously, 2012 is when I decided that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a photographer. The cost of art. For those, 125 for the canvases, those canvases. Yeah. And cost for cameras can go from, you know, you can go to Amazon. I said something about, a lot of people start with the 50, you know, that's the 50 meter, yeah. Yeah. So it is, you can get those for like $125 now for the lens. You still need a body, you know, and a body on Amazon, you can get a body for, depending on which one you want, but about $300 or $400 you can get one on Amazon.
Okay, so I've been doing photography a long time, 40 years probably. So started in my
He's still youthful.
late teens. And so I guess our average order at the studio is around $3,000. And as far as the equipment, well, the newer mirrorless cameras are around $3,000 for a body and probably about $3,000 for a lens. So about, if you had your little arsenal, it'd be about $10,000. So.
Again, Allyn. Allyn's been doing
newer high end. So, but yeah, I mean, you could spend a couple $100 on a camera up to about $10,000.
Again, Allyn's been in the business for 40 years and, owns a studio right down the road, y'all, at Piner House, O'Neill Studio, here in Suffolk.
So I've been doing photography for about 40 years as well. I started in high school. I started making money. My first job as a photographer was 34 years ago.
And what were you selling then?
I was a newspaper photographer. Yeah, so the art world I've entered kind of later, more recently than when I was in. The structure was, as a newspaper photographer, people would pay you to go photograph an event. Freelancing, and it was very minimal. And so now the range to pay to photograph an event, anywhere from $500 to on up, depending on the event. And then what was the other question? The cost of the lens. So the way I think about it is, you can start taking pictures with anything, your phone, but once you get serious about it, then the money also gets serious. I have a mirrorless Canon rangefinder camera that was $3,000, I think. Yeah, and that was not the most expensive camera I have.
And that's the body.
That's just the body. The lenses are, and because they do a lot, the lenses, I think, are about the same, actually. So.
But again, you can get started just with your phone, and if you have the passion, you can go for it. And any subject matter, any community you're a part of, right here in Hampton Roads, right? Start with your family, start with your friends, and your passion can build from there, right?
And I will say that the reason why it's so much money to get a professional photographer to take your picture is because the equipment costs so much, besides the fact that they're probably good at what they do.
Right.
Which is, it's gotten more and more difficult to make money as a photographer, I think.
Oh, why so? Just really quick.
Yeah. And even weddings that you don't like to do, it's harder and harder to get people to, because you can have a wedding and say, hey, I'll just buy a camera for $500 and give it to my friend or daughter, and they would take pictures of your wedding, and the pictures might or might not be good, but you only spent $500. Weddings start at $1,000 and go up. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining, everybody. And this is not the only event we'll have. I'm gonna, as a visual arts manager here, I want to try to have an event where we can meet the artists every exhibition. This is the last day for the Tangled Roots Capturing Black Culture exhibition. And yeah, feel free to explore the galleries. We will be closing them at 7 though, okay? But yeah, thanks for joining. Oh, one more thing. Yes, Diana?
I would just like to give Nana a hand for what she's doing. Remarkable work. She came in, she's only been here.
I've been here since June.
Since June.
Or I just got hired in June.
The first event that I came to was the Tangled Path, and
Oh, the Talented Teachers? You were in Talented Teachers exhibition.
but the first one that I came to was prior to that.
Oh, true. Yes, Tangled Roots was actually an event in March 2024 here at the center, Suffolk Center, which was with my predecessor, Brittany Waller, and I know Alan and Diana took photographs from that event. And so this exhibit was a continuation of that in terms of just what photography was taken during that event, but also how else are we talking about Black hair and culture and how it fits in with identity and culture in the Black community. Sorry, continue, Diane. Thank you.
When we were here on that day, they said the executive directors said that they wanted the space to be more inclusive. And I think that they are really opening up and inviting people in, and so we thank them for that.
Well, thank you, and I'm doing my best to make this more inclusive to every community in Hampton Roads, every culture, and even like the demolition derby here in Suffolk. That's really cool. I'd love to bring in some dismantled cards and photography in here, but capturing all cultures, capturing all communities. I definitely want to bring that here to the center. And so thanks for joining us. Please come back. And yeah, our next exhibition is going to be September 26th. It's called Colors of Royalty. We'll have Clayton Singleton as our artist, and I'm hoping to have another artist conversation with him. He's a really great painter here in the Hampton Roads area. So, and if you could just showing up to September 26th event, that's also some free food and free art to look at. So, but you can also buy as well. Anyways, have a good night. Thanks for joining us here at the Suffolk Center for Cultural Arts.